Welcome back to Book Talk with Kara. And today I am so delighted to have my friend Elizabeth Goddard back with me. And we are going to talk about her latest book, Storm Warning. But at the same time, we are going to ask a lot of fun new questions about writing and books that she would turn into movies and characters she would want to meet in real life and all those kinds of fun things. But Elizabeth, let's start with first just a quick summary of who you are, and then let's dive into Storm Warning because I started reading it and I was immediately sucked in and cannot wait to just finish it because you've created a world and stories that are just, I mean, the action takes off immediately. Okay, but I'm already going into it. So let's start with who you are really fast.
Okay, all right. I write romantic suspense for Ravel, and I've written for Levin's Par Suspense. I have been in the writing world. I started trying to write in about 2001, attending conferences, and I live in Washington State with my family, and that's where I get a lot of inspiration for my books. So,
Yeah, and Storm Warning definitely seems to take off from that because it's set on the coast and it's in this isolated little area. There's the storm coming in, though it's like man against nature, but then there's also definitely man against man, almost like from the very first moment. So tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea for this book, because it's not very often anymore where a book from like chapter 1 or 2 just sucks me in. And Storm Warning absolutely did that. I mean, I literally didn't want to go to bed, but I was trying to be a good human and do the right thing. So, how did you come up with this what if that just like is compelling from that first chapter too?
well, I'm very excited to hear you say that because, writing the first chapter and getting that, having that impact on readers is so hard, and I rewrite and rewrite and rewrite that first chapter, and you just never know if you're going to hit it right. But as most of my readers, my fans know, setting is really what inspires me. And for a long time, I've wanted to write a series set on the Washington coast and at a storm watching lodge because I think that is so fascinating. People will go to a lodge or go in the wintertime and just wait for the storms to come in and watch these magnificent waves, just crazy, crazy big waves crashing on the rocks, and so beautiful. And so to me, that really inspired the setting. For the character Remy, I have been wanting actually for probably, I don't know, a couple of decades or sometimes you have a character that's been with you forever.
Yeah.
And I have just had this what if of a military photographer that maybe was, off a mission and something happened and they lost 5 days of their life. They can't remember. And so that's really kind of where the story starts. She can't remember what has happened. You just started reading and I don't know where you are and I hope I don't give it too much away, but she is there at the lodge hiding because she's in danger and she doesn't know who the danger is coming from. Every stranger could be somebody that's followed her there to get her. So anyway, so I just took the character that I've had kind of with me forever, trying to find a place for her to fit. What story can she fit in? So now she's at the storm watching lodge in Washington, but I live pretty close, and I probably an hour that I could drive up to the Olympic Peninsula because I live pretty close. And we took a research trip last year and just drove the entire peninsula. And I can vouch and say that there's no cell service, and at some point, even the satellite doesn't work. So, perfect place. No, I know technology is changing, and that's what kind of makes it hard in romantic suspense because you could have a book come out and then bam, they have some new technology to change everything you've just written into your story, right? And so I know that satellite access and cell access is becoming more and more available, but it is a very remote part of the country. And I think, coupled with the approaching storm and all of the baggage that my two characters carry into the story with them, that just makes for a really powerful, suspenseful story. So,
Yeah, and I mean, and the action takes off from the beginning. In the first 50 or 60 pages, there's two times when Remy's life is at risk, and there's just all this stuff going on and happening to them. And you can tell they both have these pasts that are confronting them. With Remy, I mean, it's not a secret that she's got this amnesia for a period of time. And then there's the puzzle pieces. And I love that you say, she's trying to figure out how she fits and what's going on, because then there's these puzzle pieces. And so there's this mystery of what happened to her and what's going on now and how it all comes together. And so there's just all these questions that are happening that just has me going, I need the world to just stop and shut down so I can figure out, is she going to be okay? So when you think about storm warning, and the idea that people just go to these lodges and just hang out waiting for a storm, I can't even imagine. That sounds so foreign to me because I love like going and exploring and walking and like what's around the
Right.
next corner kind of
They
thing.
do that too. I'm sure they do that too because they're gonna the storm little lodges are there all season long, but it's a certain season that people will go specifically
Yeah.
for that. And I would love to do that too.
Yeah, it just sounds so interesting to me. Is there a theme that you're hoping that your readers will connect with through this story?
Well, as I was writing the story, in terms of spiritual themes, especially, I was just really impressed. I was just thinking about the waves crashing, and the Bible verses talk about the waves roaring and the mountains and all of this, that God's creation and that he is still on his throne. And I think I have that scripture in there, but it's that we go through life's troubles, I mean, everything can be coming down around us. We can be caught in a fierce storm, but he is still on his throne and he is still in control. And if we focus on that, the storms can be going on around us, but we're solid. We're in a stable place. So that's really the overall arching spiritual theme of the story. So I hope readers will come away with that, but also just very entertained.
No, and I think they will be because of just how you've crafted the story and the characters. It's just great. So, is there a significant way that the story changed between the first draft and what readers are going to hold in their hands? Because sometimes when I'm writing, there's something that gets added or cut or, just completely changes. And other times I'm like, no, it's actually pretty much the story. So I'm just curious, did anything like really dramatically change as you were working on Storm Warning?
Well, I have kind of, as we know, you've written, I believe, for Heartstorm Presents and also Love and Sparse
Yeah.
Suspense, you're required to write a synopsis, and we have to really know what's going to happen in every chapter beforehand. And I've kind of shifted away from that in my Revell books. And yes, I have a very loose idea in my head of where I need to go. And after writing so many novels, you kind of have the rhythm of the things that need to happen and the plot twists. Um, but I just kind of unearth the story as I go. So because of that, there's not going to be a lot to change because I didn't have anything set in stone to begin with, if that makes sense. But the problem becomes in the ending, and we're trying to find the plot twist. Which way am I going with this? What's going to happen? What's the best, most surprising thing that's going to fit in this story? So I wouldn't say that anything really changed because again, I didn't really know what was going to happen until I got to the end. But I have had the experience where not in this book, but in another book, I was reading other people's openings. You're talking about how you start a book, and I was just like, oh, I've got to rewrite this opening because these others are so much better. So I did. I rewrote the opening of my book and enter a new character that I hadn't expected. And so it changed the entire I can't talk trajectory of the story because I added this new character. But it worked out fine. You just have to go with your gut, right? You have to the feel of the story. Maybe you've got it all set in stone even, but you just go with the feel of the story and what you know is right or what you know is the right way to go and what the readers are going to expect and love.
But that is kind of terrifying as a writer when you're like, no, this book is really done. What are you doing? Get back in the
Yes.
cave. You can come
Yeah.
out for the next book.
Yes.
Oh my
Or, the
goodness.
ending, trying to figure out. I mean, I've been at a place where
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what I
Mhm.
want to happen here. When you're talking about that, where everything comes together, what needs to happen, and it could take me days. Usually, I'm doing dishes when it just pops in. I don't know about you, but you kind of have to free your mind up to do other things, and then the answer will just pop into my head when I'm doing something else.
Or sometimes there are some books where I can very specifically remember where I was when I'm like, I am 20 pages from the end. And I think I know who did it, but I'm not 100% sure that I know who did it. And I, in a public place on the phone with a writing friend, talking through, and I'm like, I am so surprised nobody called the police because I'm talking
Oh,
about
right,
murder, you
right,
know?
right. Exactly. No,
And I'm like,
it's a process, right? The whole
yeah,
thing, actually a
yeah,
terrifying, horrifying process, but we have to do it. We're writers, we have to do it.
yeah. And it must be weird to be on the outside listening and being like, what are they talking about? This is crazy. So when you think about like the heroes and the heroines that you're writing about, are there essential characteristics that just have to be part of them or they're not going to work for you?
Um, that's a good question. I don't think I thought about that ahead of time. I don't know. Well, they're both going to have to be very strong. And the hero, I like for him to have something in his background. I have a lot of, I read a lot of stories where people are not actually in the military, or they're not actually in law enforcement now, but they had something happen in the past. And it seems to really work well for me. And I just keep doing that over and over again. They need to have something very interesting that they have done. It could be again, some sort of interesting law enforcement that people don't usually read about. Like I like to write DS agents, the Department of Security Services, which are the group of agents that take care of the State Department and foreign entities and in foreign embassies, and just new things. I like to explore new things that you just don't read about every day. So my characters, I have to really search hard, long and hard. Like Remy was a former military photographer, and I just thought that was so fascinating. So I had to read all about what photographers do, and combat zone journalist. I just think that's just really fascinating that they go into danger to report stories, and some have lost their lives. So, just make sure they're fascinating and interesting and strong.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you're fascinated and interested in them, then that transfers to readers.
Yeah.
And that strength, I think, is really important too. Because again, they don't have to be, we don't want perfect heroes and
Right.
heroines, but we want them to be someone that we can in some way aspire to be, or they challenge us. But then they still have to be human. They have to have that element where we're like, yeah, they're still making mistakes, or
Yes, I
they're
should add.
relatable.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like to make sure they have some sort of flaw, as long as
Yes.
it's too bad of a flaw that will just turn people off. Something that's realistic that we can all relate to for sure.
Yeah. So when you think about like your journey to becoming a writer and to kind of that process, was there an author or a book that was kind of that impetus for you, or like for me, there weren't enough writers out there writing the kind of book that I wanted. And so, in my little 13, 14-year-old cocky mind, I was like, well, I can write if they're not going to write. But was there something like a book or an author that made you kind of inspired you, or um, got you thinking that, oh, I could do this, or I want to be like that?
I can't pick just one person, because I was like you, I was an avid reader and I just read everything, constantly reading. And I think when I finally started reading Christian fiction, and we talked about this earlier, it was Bodhi Taney, if I'm pronouncing her name
Yeah.
correctly, and I just really fell in love with her Zion Chronicles and her World War II novels. And I think maybe at that point, so I guess there is, I could say her. I just was like, it just started thinking, I could, if I'm going to write, I could be writing these kind of novels, because I love them so much. And I think each one of the series, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 books in a series,
Mhm.
if I'm thinking about it right. Because it's been such a long time. So it was definitely a process of many, reading many books, many authors, but probably when I was sitting down reading hers is when my mind, I think I've always wanted to be a writer, but it never really clicked with me that maybe I could be a Christian novelist until I was reading her work.
Yeah. I still remember because I loved her books too. And I remember watching a documentary one time on PBS, and there were trucks going through the Bab el Wad Valley. And I was like, oh, that's the Bab el Wad Valley. And then the narrator was like, the trucks are going through the Bab el Wad. And I'm like,
Yeah, you
reading
learn
fiction
so much.
pays off.
Right, you learn so much in her books, and her husband is a historian too, I believe. So that really helped
Yeah.
inform. So I learned so much history. Yeah, I love to read historical novels, so I learned history that way. And it was interesting because when I was trying to years ago, I was trying to actually land my agent, and I think it was just the Lord, it was just God's timing. But I was on Facebook and I had commented. I was friends with her and I commented about something, and she prayed a prayer over me, an anointing prayer over me, and it was just within a few weeks that I got my agent. And so I just
Oh,
always thought that was so special because, I loved her work,
yeah.
so that was just really neat.
That is so cool. So if you were going to have one of your books made into a movie, not a documentary, but like into a movie, is there one that you're like, oh my gosh, I would love to have this book. I'd love to see it on a TV or a screen.
Well, they're all very much action packed, and I've had a lot of readers say, this was just like watching Fast and Furious, or I don't know, so
Yeah.
action movies, and I think I spend a lot of time watching those with my guys. I'm surrounded by guys here. Um, but I keep thinking about Cold Light of Day because it just, it's about a police chief, and so much happens to her, and it's very much a beautiful setting and all of the different action, twists and turns in that book. And that was the one that won the Christie Award for the mystery suspense. So I think that would be a good one, a good fit for a
Yeah.
movie.
Well, and that
Anybody?
one was set in Alaska, right?
Yeah, Southeast Alaska.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
would, the scenery would be amazing.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah. So do you write in silence or with music?
I write with noise all around me. No, no, me, I don't know. I'm getting older now, and so I really do kind of need more quiet if possible. And there's been times when I will plug in some music if I want, and really that only happens when I'm trying to really generate the mood for an action scene. I'll take something from one of my favorite movies, and I can't even think of what that would be right now, but that is just an action sequence in a movie, and then I can listen to that, and that will just kind of bump up my creativity to bump up what I'm writing. But I don't really do that often, and I don't sit with headphones while I'm writing. I just try to carve out a few minutes of quiet, and we have dogs barking around here, and we have a bird. I don't know if you can hear the bird, and and as a mom, I'm sure you understand this, but people are always wanting things from me. And I'm like, I'm trying to write. Nobody respects the writing. But I get it done, right? I get it done.
Give and take where you're like, I'm so glad you're here. You've got to write. So
Yes,
it's
yes.
just that back and forth. Yeah. So here's a question too. Do you ever read your reviews? Because I think there's kind of a split with writers. Some people never look at them, and some of us do look at them. Where do you fall in that?
Well, I mean, at the very beginning, I would read them all the time, all the time, all the time. And what happens is, there's going to be not every reader likes your work. That's always going to be the case. And then I would just lament for it would just I would read a review that wasn't that great, and it would just knock me out for a week or two. It would just give me so much pain. And then I think probably the last 5 years, I've learned that, I don't need to go over and read the reviews all the time. There are people, not everybody's going to like my book. And so now when I do read them once in a while, because you have to pull out some reviews, to send in your newsletter or to make graphics, and I'll go over and I will only look at the 5-star reviews. I mean, because I need to keep my confidence up to keep writing. I don't need anything to drag me down. And, some of the reviews can be not even about the actual story, but about how they got the book, or the arc didn't turn out right or whatever, that kind of thing. So I just, why torture myself with that? Not everybody's going to like my work. And so I'll just read the good ones. But yeah, it's not 100% staying away, but years ago, again, I would be over there every single day looking, but now, no.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those, like when I was starting, I would look at them, try and find themes. And like I figured out, okay, I need to work on my heroines because I was seeing this, like my heroes were great. People love my heroes, but my heroines were hitting them a little flat. So I'm like, okay, I can take something from that. And I was seeing it
Right.
consistently enough, not in every review, but just often enough. Love the book, love the setting. The heroine seemed a little flat or whatever. I'm like, okay, I can do something with that. But yeah, you have to be able to protect your heart at the same time because I'm like,
Right.
man, do y'all understand how much I poured into this thing?
Oh,
But
I know.
also,
And I
yeah,
think that the people, even though, I can say that I tried to do that too early on, but then I realized, I can't please everyone. And then
yeah,
I had to learn that I have to write my story, my style of story. I have a certain style, a certain voice,
yeah,
and then I will find my readers. I will find people who like my style, whether it's the right amount of suspense or romance. And I think romantic suspense is a really tough genre because it's a hit and miss with a lot of people. It's just a certain balance. And a lot of people are going to be, oh, it's not enough romance, or they want one or the other. Same book. Different readers will say,
yeah,
oh, more romance or it's too much, whatever. And again, I go back to, I just write my style, and then I will find my readers and the people who love the balance that I provide. And so then that's kind of, you build your own confidence up and know, and just you be who you are as a writer.
yeah. No, that's a lot of wisdom. So, a couple of last questions. Did you have a favorite book as a child, like a book that you kept going back to and read over and over again?
Um, you're gonna laugh. I think I was like in fourth grade. I liked Mrs. Pickle Wiggle. I don't know if you ever read her
Yeah,
stuff, but our teacher read that to us. I loved Oh, Where the Red Fern Grows. And I
Mm,
mean, there's plenty I read multiple times, but that was such a heartbreaker. Oh my goodness, a heartbreaker. And I tried to get my own, we homeschooled, try to get my kids to read that.
yeah,
And why would I want to read a book where the dogs die? No, I'm not reading that. I heard that over and over again. So, those kind of books. But yeah, I spent several summers rereading, so I don't even remember the titles of them, but my mom had bookshelves filled with books, and they were all just like romance novels, just gothic
yeah.
romance thing. And I did read several of those. So I think that kind of informs me and directed, you write what you love. And so here I am writing mostly what I love.
I love that. And then how many hours a day do you write?
Well, the closer I get to a deadline, a lot of hours.
Yeah,
Like right now, I have a deadline February 1, and I'm spending pretty much most of my entire day in my office editing. The rest of the time, it's just like, certain 2 or 3 hours, whatever ever I can do. And a lot of times I'll pour out 3 or 4 hours of writing on one day, and then the next day I've got to do the errands and catch up, so back and forth
yeah,
and just whatever it takes. Sometimes those several hours I'm not getting much done, but research, and other times it's a lot of words. And probably like you, I just because I'm not at my computer and in my office doesn't mean that I'm not writing, because
yeah,
always in my head I am trying to figure out what's going to happen next. So, if you think about it, for a lot of writers, that could be 24/7. I mean, there's been so many times that I wake up in the middle of the night, I can't sleep, and the entire story downloads into my brain. You have to figure that you know, and I'm like, why can't this happen when I'm sitting at my desk? So, it's juggling. I wish I could just walk in at 8 in the morning and just be here all day, but I have so many other responsibilities, and it's just kind of, multiple spinning plates in the air, but it's working for me and I'm getting it done. And I just am so grateful to have this is the best job in the world, really. Don't you think?
I love it. I love teaching, but I also love the writing, and I think they go together so well.
Yeah. Sure.
So where can readers find you online, and where can they learn about your books?
Well, go to elizabethgoddard.com, and I have a brand new website that features the crashing waves of storm warning right on the front. They're live action and they look amazing. And right there you can subscribe. There's a big subscribe button, and you get a free book also. And my icons for all my social media on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Goodreads and Pinterest and blah blah blah,
All
everything.
the things.
Everything, the icons are right there. And so the website, that's the easiest way to go, and you just click on everything there and subscribe. And I hope you'll check out that amazing website though, because I just got it's a new one, and I'm just so proud of it. It's beautiful. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me.